Happy Friday, everybody. We are live, and I'm talking to you this morning about the most powerful negotiation technique that you can use. Good morning, everyone. If you're watching this, just a quick reminder that every single morning I go on and during the week I give you a little bit of encouragement or some sales tips that happen. My name is David Brooke, and I've been coaching real estate agents for about 10 years now, and I've been in the business for over 15. And over the years, I've become a student of sales, how to really do it well. And one of those things I can share with you is how to be a great negotiator. This morning, I'm going to teach you about one of the best sales negotiation tips you could possibly use. It is not what you might think it is. So it's not heavy leverage. It's not having some position over another person or trying to add pressure in any way. It has nothing to do with hard closes. It has nothing to do with really anything that you might think convinces another person. Instead, the best possible negotiation tip I've ever learned is what's called rhetorical inception. Rhetorical inception. Now, you may have heard of this before, the idea of Inception by the movie, which Leonardo DiCaprio starred in. And so that movie was essentially about this entire philosophy of what Inception is, which is the idea that forms in your mind that you plant into somebody else's mind in such a way that they think that it's their own idea. Okay, so how do you do this, and why is this important? Well, the first thing is no one likes to actually be convinced of anything. Let's think about that, right? If someone comes up to you and asks you, a bunch of questions and then starts like really trying to hard pitch you on something, or you feel like you're on a sales technique, or how about this? Imagine you're walking through the mall and someone comes up to you and they're like, oh, quick, ma'am, do you want to try this? Or it's like a face lotion, or sir, do you want to try this? It's a massager. Hey, do you want to try this? And you're like at those kiosks, you're like, oh my gosh, get away. Like, I just don't want that. That's like the worst type of sales. That's actually pressure sales. You feel the pressure of someone trying to give you something. It's actually a manipulation of the law of reciprocity, which is I'm going to give you something quick. So it makes you feel like you want to do something back. It's not good sales. But the reality is that even though those sales techniques, they tend to work on some people, the most powerful ones are the ones that we feel like are our own ideas. And why? It's because, when somebody else tells us what to do, we don't really like that. But when we have an idea, when we think like, oh man, this is a really good idea, if you feel like you thought of that idea, it feels unstoppable. Like no one actually had to convince you of anything. You just thought of it on your own. And now because you thought of it on your own, you think to yourself, how can I accomplish this thing? So imagine, let's consider it this way. If you're a sales professional and you begin to add this idea into a scenario with a prospect of selling their house or buying a car or whatever it is that you do in sales, getting insurance or mortgage or whatever. If someone feels like it's their idea, then they've got a greater chance of actually accomplishing it. And in fact, then you become the facilitator to what they feel like is their own idea. It's actually pretty wild. And I'll get into why I think it's one of the most wild ideas. So how can you do this? Let me give you 3 ways that you can actually do this. The first is Socratic questioning. So Socratic questioning is it's like asking the rhetorical question. It's like, so what color, the sky is, right? Like what color is the sky? And it's like, well, you know that it's blue. Like we're asking questions that we already know the answer to. And so if we wanted to convince someone of it, we'd ask things like, well, so do we think that it's a buyer's market or a seller's market? And we obviously know, like right now it's a seller's market. You see these prices going like crazy. And so you're asking these questions. And so if you were asking that to, let's say, a buyer might think like, well, it is a seller's market. Is it a good time to buy? Or they might think to themselves, oh man, I better be pretty serious about their offer. Do you see what just happened? I only asked the question, which then caused the buyer to now think of something. So it's another thing that you can do. You can come from the assumptive ways. And the assumptive ways are obviously, the most successful people in this. The most successful salespeople that I know do this, or the most successful sellers, the one who sell for the most prices, they do this. It's the assumptive. You're basically asking this person to assume and to see other people who do this as the most successful. So they think to themselves, Well, I want to be like the most successful people. I should do dot, dot, dot. It's the assumptive close in this scenario. And the third thing that you can do is you can story tell. And story tell, meaning like actually you're telling a real story that happened, is you can say, I have a friend Jim, and my friend Jim has a house, and his house was worth $600,000. He decided to price at $550,000, knowing that he was pricing under what it was worth. But because he did that, and he knew it was a buyer's market, right, which we know, he went ahead and he became one of the most successful sellers out there. He actually sold for $675 because the house went significantly over list price, because everyone was attracted to the property once they were in the house. It's a lot easier to become enamored with the property once they're in it, rather than just seeing it online for a price that they didn't think that they could afford. And so he became an extremely successful seller. So the question for us is, would we want to be like Jim? Right? Would we want to do that? And it causes someone to question that. So that's a very powerful way. Now, one of the most scary things about this and powerful negotiation techniques is we need to be aware that these techniques exist, because others do use them. And when they use them, they can use them in a positive fashion or a negative fashion. Now, the reasons that I think that negotiation strategies are so important is because our minds are constantly throwing up roadblocks to the things that we need in life, but it goes against this old school monkey brain, this primitive brain of ours that tries to slow us down to things. So I'll give you the example for this. If I want to go out and I want to work out, my body's going to tell me absolutely no. Like, don't do it, dude. You're tired. You've been up in the night. You deserve to stay in bed. You're not that overweight. Like, it'll give me every reason in the world not to do something. And so it's trying to convince me to not do something that's actually good for me. And so I actually will use rhetorical questioning even on myself. I'll be like, yeah, so self, is it a really good idea for me to stay in this shape? And it's like, well, it's actually not. And I have to think about it and consider. And so rhetorical inception could be a very, very powerful tool. So my advice to you is, if you're in the sales and you're in the sales profession world, use rhetorical questioning, right? Use rhetorical questioning in order to help your client get through spots that otherwise they're just, having the hard time. And it lets them decide. It gives them the power to do it. If they have the power to do it and they have the power to choose whatever they want, great. That's the best way, right? No one wants to convince anyone of doing anything. But if they do come up with that idea, it's extremely powerful. The last advice is to husbands. Husbands, when you think that you came up with the idea, just remember, it was probably hers. Happy Friday, everybody. Have a good day.